All right. Hi, everyone. Marc Alessi with the Business Incubator Association for New York State. Thanks for joining us today. Today's guest is Derrick Parson. He's the Executive Director of the Exchange at Beverly Gray. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, or this is the first podcast you're watching, first a little commercial on the Business Incubator Association of New York State. We are a trade association of now about 120 incubators located across New York State, all different industry sectors. And our mission is to bring together the people that run these incubators and accelerators around the state to share best practices, experiences, find ways to collaborate. And when we see issues in the innovation ecosystem, we pull together and try to solve them collectively. So want to introduce Derrick Parson, and we were elated when the exchange joined BIANYS a few months back. We usually like to highlight our newest members so that the membership gets to know who is in the membership and what they're doing, and they think of ways again to work together. So Derrick, thank you for joining us today. Really, taking a look at your background. I know this is going to be a great segment, but we were chatting a little bit earlier. Tell me, I know born in Brooklyn,
Yep.
ended up in Buffalo for college. So tell us a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey and what made you stay in Buffalo before joining the exchange.
Yeah, and so, first of all, Marc, thank you for having me, the Exchange of Beverly Gray. We're excited to be a part of BIANYS. And then thank you for having me, while we start out Black History Month as well, too. It'll all tie together, once I tell you everything. So yeah, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, came up to Buffalo for college. Shout out to the University of Buffalo. Did my undergrad and my master's there. Then, started into educational technology and distance learning, curriculum development. Pretty simply put, if you've ever done online classes, I'm the guy in the background who's either created the coursework for online classes or work with the professors to create the coursework for it, right? And this is from a litany of learning management tools. And so I wasn't lost on the entrepreneurial bug. It was something that I knew I always had. My mom started a boutique in Brooklyn on Flatbush and Caton, right? Caribbean area, that kind of thing. So I already knew about entrepreneurship. While in college, started a moving truck business, one of the first school businesses.
Was that the college hunks hauling junk or?
Yeah, close. But we were hauling people's stuff. So think about it. One of the biggest things from anybody coming up and down the 90, as far as New York City, it was hard to get your stuff back when you left, right? So back in the time, I'm dating myself a bit, but when I first got to college, once you got there, you brought all your stuff, but when time was over, you got to pack up and lug it everywhere, right? And so we started a moving business helping college kids do that. We were successful because most of them knew us and trusted us, and the families obviously did. And we took that from first starting locally, then all the way down to New York City, and then stops along the 90, right, the way. So, that got me into the entrepreneurial bug. Fast forward, I was still a curriculum developer, left that job to create that same a small business entity that was focused on instructional design, wound up servicing a lot of people in the Buffalo area, as well as big name companies like study.com, creating courses for them for learning and things like that too. Then from there, people started asking, hey, how can we use a platform like this? And so that small business, I took one piece of it out and we created a small tech company called Graspy at that time here locally in Buffalo, New York. And I think it was at that time where I really started understanding the tech ecosystem, what Buffalo was becoming, was able to receive, well over $500,000 in investment from a lot of real great organizations here locally. Think of your Launch New York, your Z80 Labs, those kind of people. And then that kind of kept me here, right? And then from that moment on, I was just into tech, being an entrepreneur, growing and developing, and then seeing how an ecosystem ran. Um, had investors outside of New York, right? DC, Atlanta, my time, a little bit of time in Silicon Valley, that kind of thing. So the entrepreneurial piece started building with me. And then, it was one of those things where it was time to say, hey, either you're going to take this company and move, but unfortunately, COVID happened at that time. And
Right.
so that kind of subsided a lot of what we were doing because a lot of it was in the hospitality and retail space at that time. And then so, try to pivot on that, started a new tech company. But then I got the a call that said, hey, we know there's a lot of systemic problems when it comes to the resources and funding to help BIPOC entrepreneurs here in the city of Buffalo, right? We don't have it right, but we know you are one of those key players in the ecosystem. Would you be interested in, while you're building your own businesses, helping to, build something new, here in the city of Buffalo? And that's how I got introduced to the Exchange of Beverly Gray.
Awesome. So I one of my first questions, and you use the term BIPOC. So let's define that for the folks listening that might not have ever heard that term before.
Yeah, so BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, right? So you're thinking about your African American community, you're thinking about your Latinx community, you're thinking about all of the people of color who are in your community that are trying to become entrepreneurs, whether it be small business owners, whether it be high growth tech startups, right? That's what that BIPOC piece that defines.
And from what I understand, there's a gap in terms of entrepreneurial service access to mentorship
Yeah.
for BIPOC entrepreneurs. And aside from services, venture capital as well. So this is
Yeah.
something that the exchange was created to try to address.
Yeah, so the exchange actually was created back in 2017, 2016, 2017. It was established by Mayor Byron Brown, right? The thought process was, let's bring this hub. It was initially called the Beverly Gray Business Exchange Center Incorporated, right? And so it was initially created to help those who were specifically looking for MWBE certifications, those who wanted to start doing a lot of work with the city, county, state of New York when it came to construction and those kind of areas, right? There was a huge a piece on that, and so what happened was that Mayor established that, they started to grow, and then of course, like with everything, COVID kind of hit, right, and it kind of shut down a lot of pieces, and then so from there, that's how this place started to grow, and then in 2021 around that time where I was still coming out of COVID, pivoting one startup into another, that's when I was asked, hey, would you be interested in taking the lead on this and bringing your vision to what we need here in the city of Buffalo?
So I'm going to back up for a second. So the
Yeah,
mayor was instrumental in helping to launch this.
absolutely.
I think, and just to comment on that, I want to ask a little bit about Beverly Gray, and her history with the city. I think she was a former councilwoman, and so
Yes.
this the name honors her. But so Byron Brown. So I'm a former politician.
Mhm.
I served in the New York State Assembly. Byron Brown was not mayor. I think he was Senator
Yep.
Brown when I was there. Didn't get to know him that well. There's a lot of senators and assembly members, but know of him and have seen some of the great work he's done in Buffalo. But one of the most remarkable things, you don't have to comment on it, but one of the most remarkable things I saw was, I think, in his last election cycle, New York State has these very archaic laws, and I'm seeing it now with independent party petitions and things like that. It's very hard to get people qualified. But Byron Brown, somehow, like, his petitions got disqualified when he's running for re-election, and he's not on the ballot.
Mm.
And I'm thinking to myself, you can't survive that. Who's the next mayor? He won on write-ins.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't on.
Yeah.
This guy's got to be enormously popular to pull that off. But obviously, whenever I see an elected official that is making an investment in the startup and innovation ecosystem or entrepreneurship, it's something near and dear to my heart as a former, even when I was elected. But tell me about Beverly Gray. So she was an
Mhm.
elected official. Why is this place named after Beverly Gray? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Mayor Brown, used to work with her, at one point in time, right? And so there was Beverly Gray was not only one of the first female, councilwomen here in the city of Buffalo, but she was also the first Black female councilwoman. One of the things that was most notable about her was she walked in with an open door policy, right? Any of her constituents, anybody who had questions, comments, or concerns, they can open the come in, walk in, right? And
Right,
being an official, like, hey, that's not normal how it is.
right.
Uh, but the second piece about it was she was also an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And so where the actual physical location of the Exchange of Beverly Gray is, it's a former library. It was the first library in the city of Buffalo's East Side, right? And so she had two different businesses that were not too far from this location, right? She was a champion for entrepreneurship. She was a champion for small business development because in this corridor that we're in, we sit in the Jefferson corridor, which a lot of people, if you've heard of that name, you probably know it because it's tied, unfortunately, to the mass shooting that happened, that tragedy that
Oh
happened
gosh, yeah.
at the Tops. And so we're just a block away from that, right?
Yeah.
But this area was a heyday for Black entrepreneurship, vibrant, beautiful corridor that bolstered businesses and so much was going on here. And so Beverly Gray really said, you know what? I want to make sure that entrepreneurship, small business development was a staple. And that's how she ran. And that's one of the reasons that Mayor Brown dedicated this particular organization to her, because he knew that, hey, entrepreneurship is a trigger, right? It helps the economy grow, whether it be a county, city, state, the US. We
Right.
know that small businesses actually run the economy here, right?
Right.
And so when you think about it, when you want an inclusive and an equitable city, you want to make sure that each area of the city has a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. And that was Mayor Byron Brown's thing when he first started it. And that's how Beverly Gray is tied into it. When you walk into our facility, Marc, we got to get you down here, or
Yes.
up here rather, right? When you walk into the facility, we have a huge, beautiful portrait of Beverly Gray right on the front in our foyer. And again, it's an honor to continue her legacy. And as I tell everybody, some of the seasoned members of the community come in here because it was their first library. They remember doing Reading Rainbow right here at the library, and now they look to see, wow, we're here helping entrepreneurs, right? And that's a big and beautiful thing. But that's who Beverly Gray was, and that's how
Awesome.
this all was started.
Well, I will be up there, and anybody listening to this, the BIANYS annual meeting is in Buffalo this year, June 4th, 5th, and 6th. And I think the exchange is one of the locations that we're
Yep.
at least doing a tour, but maybe more. So all of us can see this amazing place. Um, and I have a couple of questions from you at a personal level in terms of your background with the online learning.
Yeah.
But just to stay on the exchange for a bit. So I'm assuming it was a bit of a relaunch after COVID was over. What mix of companies or entrepreneurs are you seeing in terms of, first of all, obviously backgrounds, ethnicity and race, but also sectors? What are people tackling and what are they coming for to you? What do they need most?
Yeah, great question. So after COVID, what happened? Pretty much a rebranding, right? So when I first stepped in about 2021, the first thing I did was pool well over 100 plus entrepreneurs, right? To see, hey, what do they need? What do they want? What they weren't receiving, right? Obviously, every entrepreneur says funding first, right? But then when you peel that layer back and said, okay, if you had the money that you needed to have, what exactly would be the next thing that you needed to focus on? And so then that's kind of how we started building the exchange at Beverly Gray, right? So we wanted to make sure that we kept, again, Beverly Gray's name in it. We took the exchange out because we wanted something quick and palatable that people can say right away, try to be a little hip for the youngsters, right? That kind of thing, right? And then from there, we did two specific things. What we said was we wanted to create the incubator, right? An official incubator recognized by New York State. So we worked with our good friend Tom Murdoch over at the University of Buffalo, and he helped to get us into that incubator network through the university. And then he told us about BIANYS. And then we wanted to make sure we are part of that. So then now we have our university contact, right? The big supporter on that end. And then from there, we wanted to make sure that we provided a safe space for entrepreneurs to come to. So not only did we now build the incubator, we also built the lower level, turned it into a co-working space. So now upper level is a few suites, about 4 or 5 suites, where entrepreneurs can actually rent out the space. It's their space. And then the lower level is a co-working. From there now, what we said was, now that we have well over a couple of hundred entrepreneurs that we pooled, now let's get the services and resources behind us so we can provide for them. So then we said, okay, we worked with Western New York Law Center so that now we have provide a legal clinic, right? So it's not, hey, I need just a quick second to talk. It's no, I need to form a LLC, C Corp, B Corp, whatever, right? You come through the exchange, they'll provide that service, right?
And to stop you there for a second,
Yeah.
Western New York Law Center, is that part of like the SUNY Buffalo Law School, or where?
No. So this is a separate nonprofit, right? So partnerships meant
okay.
everything for us, right? Partnerships said, okay, hey, how do we pick dedicated partners out of the city of Buffalo that are doing specialized things and bring those resources here so they can specifically help to serve those BIPOC entrepreneurs that we have here at the Exchange of Beverly Gray, right? And so we did that for legal, we did that for finance, we did that for marketing, we did that for web development, right? So we found those people, and then we partnered with different organizations to kind of give those services. And then so now we're seeing mom and pop shops, right? Your storefront, your main street businesses. We're seeing a lot of service-based businesses, right? Some in the DE&I space, some in the marketing space, some in the podcasting space, that kind of thing. We're seeing a lot of tech companies, right? So we're seeing those who are building brands whether they're utilizing tech, right, specifically as a product, or obviously tech enabled, which every business really is, right? And then we're seeing brands that are more consumer focused. Think of your packaged goods, think of your coffees and things like that. We're seeing people build brands around that. So now we had a focus to say, okay, initial resources to help these specific type of brands in these industries to kind of develop along the way.
Awesome. And then how big is your catchment area? Like, is it all of the city of Buffalo that could come and apply to be part of the exchange, or is it global? Like, I know like 43 North gets applications from all over the place.
Right.
The companies have to move to Buffalo, but I'm assuming when you're starting an incubator to help an underserved population of entrepreneurs, you're starting in the local community, but are you seeing applications from other areas for BIPOC entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. So our initial, because we're on the east side of Buffalo, which is predominantly African American, that's the initial community we serve, right? Then what we're seeing is an influx of Latinx entrepreneurs as well too. We're now not just focused on the east side of Buffalo, right? We have BIPOC entrepreneurs as far as Niagara Falls, right? That come to us. We have BIPOC entrepreneurs that we've talked to as far as Fredonia that have talked to us, right? Yeah, so we're seeing that while, yes, we have a focus to help those within the city of Buffalo, right? And then, of course, the outskirts. So you have your Amherst, you have your Orchard Parks, you have those areas where there are BIPOC entrepreneurs who are coming to us for assistance with resources and things of that nature.
I gotta think that, if there's an entrepreneur, BIPOC entrepreneur, even in an area that has a robust incubator, that the connection to the exchange might be really important for like a cultural competence. Like, you might have a mentor that doesn't understand some of the intricacies that might, that might be affecting a BIPOC entrepreneur as much
Right.
as a BIPOC mentor. Can you speak to that at all? Like, have you seen
Yeah,
firsthand the antidotes?
absolutely, absolutely. And it's important to note that like one of the tech companies or the tech company that I have right now is actually called Latte. That's the specific focus, right? Mentorship, sponsorship, and the increase and inclusion of BIPOC employees to transition through their career. But what we notice when we talk about mentorship, regardless of whether or not it's through business incubators or it's through corporate entities, what we notice is that number one, that the diversity of mentors and mentees is essential for the growth of both, right? So, Marc, you mentoring me, we both learn from each other because we may have two different experiences, right?
Right.
But the commonality is one, we're both entrepreneurs, and two, as a mentee, I can learn how to build, scaled a business through you, right? And so both parties are now learning and growing because of those, again, one common factor out of entrepreneurship, but two differences in terms of culture where we come from. And it makes the mentors better in being able to soft skills as well to handle, right, BIPOC entrepreneurs and learn from them at the same time, as well as then take what they've learned to make it applicable to other entrepreneurs, whether white,
Right.
black, brown, whomever. So there is a lot of opportunity in that. And what we've seen is there are a lot of mentors out there, whether they are of color or not, that want to help this particular population of
Right.
entrepreneurs. And we're excited about that.
No, there's, the two thoughts. One is, first of all, flipping the script in terms of customer discovery. You know, the exchange might have a better read on BIPOC communities as customers. So what are the needs? What are the problems that can be solved with the technology or with the product that just might be lost again from a lack of cultural competence of this is how I'm going to advertise my product
Mm.
in this community, and completely lost or insulting in some way. And if you're not a BIPOC entrepreneur, but you're trying to reach the BIPOC community and understand them as a potential customer, it's probably they're going to probably need some mentorship from you in that customer discovery process.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's across the board in customer discovery,
Yeah,
right? And so you know that whether a BIPOC entrepreneur or not, everyone knows that in order to actually sell a product, brand, or whatever, you got to know who you're selling it to, right?
right.
And I think that's huge. And in one of our enrichment programs that we do, we actually do steadily take some time with our entrepreneurs to focus on customer discovery, right? That's essential. That's important. Whether it be a coffee shop, right, in the heart of the East Side, understanding why and how to target and your customers that way, that's essential. Or whether it be someone having a service-based business who's located on the East Side, but maybe their target customers might be predominantly white, right?
Right.
How do you talk to them? How do you sell your product in a way that attracts the customer that you want? But those are all the things that we do here at the Exchange when it comes to workshops, classes, programs, resources that we offer. And to your point as well, too, those who are looking to sell to or into the BIPOC community, we tell them as well, too, you need to be looking at those BIPOC entrepreneurs as well, because sometimes they have products right then and there that are able to be sold into their community because, again, relatability is right there, right?
Right.
So those are the things that we look at as well. But those are ways in which we're helping our entrepreneurs.
The other thing that you mentioned was that mentors are seeing a certain level of gratification in whether volunteering or paid mentorship or whatever, but
Yeah.
being involved with helping BIPOC entrepreneurs. And I could right now I could see where that gratification is amplified in the when you're involved with BIPOC entrepreneurs. But one of the greatest things in terms of entrepreneurship is when you get into any population that is, entrepreneurship, the way we do it is a little foreign.
Mm.
You and I, born probably decades apart. I don't know how much older I am, but very similar communities in Brooklyn. I when I started my entrepreneurial journey, of course, I knew people involved with business or had started businesses. Not a lot of tech entrepreneurs around me though, and you got to peel through an onion to understand,
Yeah.
all right? But once you get a grasp of it, it's empowering to say, I could identify a problem. I can come up with a handful of solutions. I can test those solutions long before I spend any money. And when to come up with a prototype or a product now, it's a lot less expensive than it was 20 years ago.
That's true.
And when people start realizing, hey, there's a process here that if you learn it, you can start companies off of it. You can create products, and then it feeds off itself.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, you look at what's happening in other parts of Buffalo. Everybody points to the unicorn ACV auction,
ACV auctions. Yep.
right? But that's exactly how Silicon Valley started. Is you had some investment from federal government. It was defense industry. Actually, I live on Long Island now, so there was a Long Island defense contractor that went to the West Coast and put a lot of money into some of the processes out there out of I guess Stanford.
Mm.
But those first generations of entrepreneurs that were successful started mentoring and investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs. And 50 years later, the culture in the Silicon Valley is you can't walk into a Starbucks without seeing two budding CEOs and CTOs sitting
Right.
at a table, and you know, knowing that you're seeding communities, and specifically a community that might be disadvantaged with a crop of entrepreneurs that, 2 generations from now, it's a completely different economy and a different
Yeah.
community all across the state. That is gratifying. Um, so I know we're probably got a few minutes left. I want to go back onto online learning and get some of your purview there. Um, I, when before we even went into COVID, I thought that some of the models, the way we're doing primary, secondary, and even higher education are going to be disrupted eventually.
Yeah.
For just-in-time learning, that's empowering. I heard that term from Vint Cerf, one of the fathers of the internet. I
Mm.
had the opportunity to interview him, and just-in-time learning is when you had to go fix your dishwasher, and you go
Mm.
on YouTube and you
Yeah.
look at 3 videos, and suddenly you have the ability to take apart an electronic that you never would have even thought of doing.
Right.
And I do it all the time now. So to that end, people learn better
Right.
and they self-direct and are curious, but it's hard to stay focused. Marrying those two things together, do you see education transforming and online learning growing in a way where it starts, you know, disrupting primary, secondary, or higher education?
Yeah, I mean, but that's already happening, right? Think about it. Online learning has been something that I've been in the field for a while. But it even predates me, but it was moving relatively slow. I think because of the fact that one of the, you would say, fortunate, depending on who you ask, things that COVID did was it actually increased it 10 times, even 20
Right.
times in one shot, right? Everyone had to move online. Everyone had to figure out a way, whether it be entrepreneurs to sell products online that you've never done before. Maybe you had brick and mortar stores, or maybe a service-based business was in person. Now you have to figure out how to do it online. And even colleges, workplaces, everybody had to figure out the best way, the best platform to use so you can stay connected and stay driving revenue throughout whatever you're doing, right? So I think online learning will forever be something that's here. Even now with the adoption of, you see AI, ChatGPT going on, now there's a new level, a new way of how learning is done, right? You think about people, you hear the stories all the time. students now in high school are using ChatGPT to do papers and homeworks and things of that nature. But what people don't understand is you can use it as well to learn, right? In a different way that you might not have been able to do 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, right? And I think that's again attributed to that space and time where, you know, the world was almost shut down or was shut down, and we had to figure that out. But I think there's a lot more to come when it comes to online learning. And you know, I'm just fortunate enough to have been in that space. And that's probably why a lot of the tech platforms that I do create always tend to be around that online, that the development, that learning and development space. It's because that's where I come from, but I do know that's where the world will be going.
Right.
Or is.
So people watching this video, like in closing, if they're trying to think of ways to collaborate with you, or if there's something that you're looking for to pull into the exchange to better serve your entrepreneurs, what would you say to, you know, somebody in Syracuse, for example, that might be servicing a very similar population, or somebody in Hudson Valley that's serving a very different population, or a very rural non-BIPOC operation? What opportunities are there to collaborate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first thing that we all have to remember is we're all incubators, right? All of our goals are to help our entrepreneurs, right? Whether BIPOC or not, you know. But the exchange at Beverly Gray exists to specifically serve that underrepresented community, right? And so we would say for collaboration, you know, we're looking for a lot of mentors, right? We want to have more mentors for our entrepreneurs, right? Whether you are here in the Buffalo area, Niagara Falls, that Western New York area, or if you know, along the 90 heading down all the way to New York City, right? We want to make sure that, hey, we have enough resources in terms of mentors to actually give a great perspective on how entrepreneurs should build a multitude of businesses. That's the one thing. The other thing I would say is, look, you can always look to the exchange at Beverly Gray as to be a help as well too, right? While we've been around, the entity has been around since about 2017. The exchange itself, as it's been rebranded, is about 3 years old. We can provide, you know, a little assistance for newer incubators, right, on how to kind of receive funding. I mean, Marc, we just announced yesterday through the regional revitalization program that we were received $3 million in funding, right, in partnership with the Foundry, which is a maker space not too far from us. We received that funding, right, from like the Wilson Foundation and a collaborative unit. And so, you know, I can help other business incubators who are just starting to kind of say, hey, how do we look to go after, you know, as I like to call them, you know, the Moby Dicks, right? The big whales out there funding when you are still young, right? When you are still pivoting in that sense, right? It's all about what you have to offer specifically and the impact that you can make. And I think because of who we are at the Exchange of Beverly Gray, the impact we can make on not only the BIPOC entrepreneurs on the East Side, but particularly in Buffalo, period, I think that's one of the things that we're excited about, right? So we're all about collaboration. We're all about partnership. So anybody who is interested, we're only a phone call, email, social media post away from connecting with us.
Absolutely awesome. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, Derrick, to get this time with you and learn more about the exchange. I'm really looking forward to the annual meeting in Buffalo and seeing it in person, and really look forward to working with you. So thanks so much.
Marc, thank you for having me. Excited to be one of the newest incubators in BIANYS. And I look forward to when we're all when everyone is all up here, so I can show you everyone the space and even meet some of the great entrepreneurs that we've been helping to build some real dynamic and amazing businesses here in Buffalo. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.